proceedings in Israel are marred by a fundamental lack of transparency. Generally, the Palestinians feel that they have not been included in a joint effort to establish the truth.
It also has a bad record in international humanitarian law as an occupying power. And it is a shame to put on a par an abuser and the abused, a people fighting to overcome continuing oppression from over 6 decades.
Under the guise of self-defense, Israel has so far developed an inadmissible culture of violence.
Where are the Israeli officials responsible for the Gaza massacre? They continue to enjoy full impunity. They are planning for further massacres against the Palestinian people.
It is a crime of collective extermination.
One cannot expect an abuser to put himself on trial.
I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of UN Watch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Professor Tomuschat, in November 2009, Chatham House convened legal experts to examine the procedural aspects of the Goldstone Report. We wish to ask you similar questions. Your report sets forth the duty of investigators to be independent, in paragraph 22 saying, quote, being institutionally detached from those implicated in the events. In this regard, according to news reports, in 1996 you helped prepare a legal brief for Yasser Arafat to advise the PLO leader on how to bring his case before the UN and the ICJ. You are quoted in the July 25 Jerusalem Post as saying that your brief was objective, that should not be regarded as a blemish, and that you, quote, could not recall whether this work was done on behalf of Mr. Arafat. Professor Tomuschat, assuming that with the passage of time you have been able to record your brief for Mr. Arafat and the PLO, would you not agree that this contravenes the principle of independence as defined in your own report? Second, your report addressed the duty of impartiality, the question of whether an investigator is or is likely to be biased. In this regard, the Chatham House legal experts cited the acute problem of individuals who, quote, participate in fact-finding missions regarding conflict on which they have written in the past. UN Watch has published a report today that documents numerous examples of your use of inflammatory language and one-sided conclusions against Israel. We note 3. In 2002 and again in 2007, you cited Israel as your prime example of, quote, state terrorism. You wrote that there was little hope its judicial system would conduct effective investigations. Is not this preconception going back 8 years directly relevant to today's report? In 2006, when a German academic journal featured 2 opposing views on the Israeli-Hezbollah war, you presented the side opposed to Israel. Third, this past year, you accused Israel of bombing, quote, entire families on frivolous grounds. Professor Tomuschat, would you not agree that these statements breach the Chatham House standard on perceived bias and the standard of your own report? Finally, we ask, how is it that last month, at the same time as Hamas openly claimed credit for murdering 4 Israelis, an act of terror condemned by the High Commissioner, your committee was engaging with it as a serious stakeholder that might investigate its crimes against civilians? Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you for your statement. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are presently holding an interactive dialogue on the report submitted by the Committee of Independent Experts. Participants are expected to make comments or ask questions on the report. I cannot fail to notice that a specific member of the committee has been targeted in this statement. This is not acceptable. Everyone has the right to express his or her views about the report or activity of the committee. But this should remain within the accepted framework, ensuring that the sense of respect permeates our discussion. With this in mind, I give the floor to the next speaker.
Let me just reply on a personal note to Human Rights Watch by saying that I do believe UN Watch, yes, UN Watch, yes, I do apologize, by saying that I do believe in judicial settlement of international disputes. It seems that UN Watch does not share that view. Thank you.